A 9-year-old boy walked into a biker bar at midnight, placed a crumpled suicide note on the counter, and said 5 words that made 20 hardened criminals drop everything to save his life. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. Marcus had been planning this for 3 weeks. Every detail was carefully thought out by a mind too young to be contemplating such darkness. He had written the note 17 times until the words were perfect, folded it exactly in half, and waited until his foster parents passed out drunk like they did every Friday night. The walk from his foster home to the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club took 43 minutes. Marcus counted every step, memorizing the route he would never take again, or so he thought. His thin jacket did nothing against the October wind, but physical cold was nothing compared to the ice that had settled in his heart months ago. The Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club was the most feared group in 3 states. Their reputation for violence was legendary, their criminal records extensive, and their bar was the last place any child should ever enter. The building itself looked like a fortress of sin. Black walls covered in graffiti, windows tinted so dark they looked like hollow eyes, and motorcycles lined up outside like metal soldiers guarding the gates of hell. But Marcus wasn't just any child. He was a boy who had survived 7 foster homes in 2 years, each one worse than the last. He had learned to read people like survival manuals, to sense danger before it struck, and to endure pain that would break most adults. Tonight, all that survival instinct had led him here, to the one place everyone said to avoid. Thunder, the club president, was counting cash from their latest illegal enterprise when the door creaked open. The man stood 6'5", weighed 300 pounds of muscle and scars, and had hands that had broken more bones than he could count. His gray beard reached his chest, braided with silver rings that clinked when he moved. Prison tattoos covered every visible inch of skin, each one telling a story of violence and time served. The music stopped. Conversations died. 20 pairs of eyes turned to see a small figure silhouetted in the doorway. The contrast was almost surreal, a child standing in a doorway that had seen drug dealers, murderers, and worse pass through. "Kid, you lost," Razor called out, his voice rough from decades of cigarettes. Razor was Thunder's enforcer, a man who'd spent 15 years in maximum security for crimes that still gave hardened criminals nightmares. His face was a roadmap of knife fights, his knuckles permanently swollen from decades of violence. Marcus walked forward with purpose, his sneakers squeaking on the sticky floor. Each step felt like a mile, but he didn't falter. The smell hit him hard, stale beer, cigarette smoke, leather, and something darker he couldn't identify. Men twice the size of his foster father watched him with curiosity and confusion. He climbed onto a bar stool, his feet dangling a foot from the floor. The leather was cracked and worn, probably older than he was. Marcus reached into his pocket, his small fingers trembling not from fear but from the weight of what he was about to do. He placed a folded piece of paper on the scarred wood. "I need you to read this," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Thunder picked up the note. His massive fingers, adorned with skull rings, unfolded the paper carefully. As his eyes scanned the carefully printed words, his face went from annoyed to shocked to something nobody in that bar had ever seen before. Genuine fear. "Jesus Christ," Thunder whispered. The note read, "My name is Marcus. I'm 9 years old. By the time you read this, I will have saved my foster sister Emma from what they do to us. She's only 6. I couldn't let them hurt her anymore. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to save us both. Please tell someone that we tried to be good kids. We really did try. Tell Emma I kept my promise to protect her. Tell her she can have my dinosaur collection. She always liked the T-Rex best. Maybe someone nice will adopt her now. Someone who won't lock her in closets or burn her with cigarettes when she cries. I'm going to the bridge on Highway 47. The fall is far enough. I Googled it. I love you, Emma. Be brave." Thunder's massive hands shook as he looked at the boy. The room had gone completely silent. Men who had faced down rival gangs, survived prison riots, and lived through wars were frozen by the words of a 9-year-old. "When did you write this, son?" 3 hours ago, Marcus replied. "But I changed my mind. I came here instead." "Why here?" Bones asked, moving closer. Bones was the club's treasurer, a former Army Ranger with PTSD so severe he couldn't sleep without nightmares. He'd found peace in the brotherhood of outcasts, but Marcus's note had triggered something in him, a memory of another child in another country who hadn't been saved in time. Marcus looked around at the leather-clad giants surrounding him. "Because you're the only people everyone's afraid of. Maybe you can stop them when nobody else would. The police didn't believe me. The social worker said I was making it up for attention. The teacher I told got transferred to another school. But people run when they see you coming. Maybe Gary and Linda will run too." The silence that followed was deafening. These men had done terrible things, hurt people, broken laws without remorse. But a suicidal 9-year-old was something none of them knew how to handle. Wolf, the oldest member at 73, spoke up from the corner. He'd been with the club since its founding, had seen everything, done everything. "Kid, what exactly are they doing to you and your sister?" Marcus's composure finally cracked. Tears rolled down his cheeks, as words poured out like water through a broken dam. "They lock Emma in the closet when she cries, sometimes for days. I slide crackers under the door when they're passed out. Gary, he comes to my room at night, says if I tell anyone or fight back, he'll do worse to Emma. Linda burns us with cigarettes when we spill things or talk too loud. She held Emma's hand on the stove last week because she asked for more dinner." Snake slammed his fist on the bar so hard, bottles jumped. The man was covered in serpent tattoos, each one representing someone he'd hurt in his previous life. But children, that was a line even he had never crossed. "Where's your sister now?" Thunder asked urgently. "Locked in the closet at home. They do that when she cries too much. She's been in there since yesterday morning. I could hear her whimpering when I left." 20 bikers exploded into action simultaneously. Engines roared to life in the parking lot before Marcus could even climb down from the bar stool. The sound was deafening. Harley Davidsons firing up in unison, a mechanical army preparing for war. "Wait," Thunder commanded. "We do this smart. Razor, call Doc. Tell him we need him now. Bones, get your cousin at Child Services on the phone. Snake, Wolf, you're with me. Everyone else stays here and protects the kid." Doc wasn't a real doctor, but he'd been a combat medic in Iraq, patching up soldiers under fire. He'd lost his medical license for stealing morphine to deal with his own pain, but his skills remained sharp. He could identify abuse injuries better than most ER doctors. Marcus watched in amazement as these terrifying men transformed into a precision military unit. Within minutes, they had medical supplies, recording equipment, and a plan that would save more lives than just his and Emma's. Tank, a massive black man with arms like tree trunks, knelt beside Marcus. "You hungry, little man? When's the last time you ate?" "Yesterday morning," Marcus admitted. "A piece of toast." Tank's jaw clenched. He disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a burger and fries. "Eat slow," he advised. "Don't want you getting sick." As Marcus ate his first real meal in days, Thunder made calls. His network extended far beyond the criminal underworld. Judges who owed him favors, cops who looked the other way, prosecutors who knew that sometimes justice came from unexpected places. "You're coming with us," Thunder told Marcus. "You're going to show us everything, and we're going to end this tonight." The convoy of motorcycles moved through the city like predators hunting prey. Marcus rode behind Thunder, holding tight to the giant man who smelled like leather and motor oil, but somehow made him feel safer than he'd felt in years. The vibration of the engine, the roar of 20 bikes moving in formation, the wind whipping past, it all felt like destiny unfolding. They passed through neighborhoods that got progressively nicer, the cruel irony not lost on anyone. The worst. Monsters often hid in the prettiest houses. The foster home was a 2-story colonial in a decent neighborhood, the kind of place that looked perfect from the outside. White picket fence, manicured lawn, flower boxes in the windows, a swing set in the backyard that no child was ever allowed to use. Thunder had seen enough of these facades to know the worst monsters often hid behind suburban respectability. "How many kids in there?" Thunder asked. 4, Marcus said. "Me, Emma, and twins named Joey and David. There's 7. Gary and Linda get extra money for taking difficult kids. Kids nobody else wants. Kids who've been through too many homes. Kids nobody will believe." Thunder's jaw clenched. He activated the recording device in his vest pocket. What happened next would need to be documented for court. They didn't knock. Thunder's boot sent the front door crashing open with a sound like thunder itself. The door frame splintered, wood flying in all directions. Gary jumped up from the couch, beer spilling across his substantial gut. He was exactly what Thunder expected, soft, weak, the kind of man who only felt powerful when hurting children. "What the hell?" Gary's words died as he saw 20 bikers filing into his living room. Men covered in leather and tattoos, men with scarred faces and prison builds, men who radiated violence like heat from a forge. His wife, Linda, appeared from the kitchen, her face going pale. She was thin, sharp-featured, with the dead eyes of someone who'd learned to enjoy causing pain. "Marcus!" Linda shrieked. "You ungrateful little—" "Shut your mouth," Thunder growled. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Say another word to that boy and I'll forget I'm trying to do this legal." Marcus led them upstairs. Each step creaked under Thunder's weight. Family photos lined the walls, staged smiles hiding horrors. The closet door was padlocked with a heavy-duty lock, the kind used on storage units. Inside, they could hear Emma's quiet whimpers. "Key," Thunder demanded. Gary stammered. "You can't just break into my house." Snake pulled out bolt cutters and snapped the lock like it was made of paper. The sound was sharp, final. Emma tumbled out, her tiny body covered in bruises, her princess nightgown torn. She was so small, so fragile, that several of the bikers had to look away. She saw Marcus and launched herself into his arms. "You came back," she sobbed. "You promised you wouldn't leave me." "I brought help," Marcus whispered, holding her tight. "These are the leather angels I told you about, the ones from my dreams. They're real, Emma. They're real and they're here to save us." That's when they heard it, crying from another room, weak, muffled, but unmistakable. The twins were locked in the basement, punishment for refusing to steal from a classmate's backpack at school. The basement door had 3 locks on it. Snake cut through them all. What the bikers found in that house over the next hour would haunt even these hardened criminals. A ledger documenting years of foster care fraud. Gary and Linda had been claiming money for children who had run away but were actually sold. Photos on a hidden computer that made Doc vomit in the kitchen sink. A soundproofed room in the attic that no child should ever see, equipped with restraints and cameras. The twins were huddled in a dog crate in the basement, barely conscious. They'd been there for 3 days with no food and minimal water. Doc worked on them with the efficiency of someone who'd saved lives in combat zones, checking for dehydration, injuries, signs of worse abuse. "They need a hospital," Doc announced, "now." Thunder called his cousin, who worked in the district attorney's office. "You need to get here now. Bring everybody. And I mean everybody. We've got enough evidence here to burn down the whole damn system." Within 20 minutes, the house was swarming with police, FBI agents, and social workers. The bikers formed a protective circle around the children, making it clear that anyone who wanted to separate these kids would have to go through them first. Gary and Linda were arrested on charges that would ensure they never saw freedom again. But as the FBI processed the scene, they found something that changed everything: encrypted files pointing to a network. 14 more houses across 3 states, dozens of children trapped in a system that was supposed to protect them, but had been corrupted by monsters who saw kids as commodities. The lead FBI agent, Special Agent Chen, had tears in her eyes as she reviewed the evidence. "This is bigger than anything we've seen. These kids, Marcus's courage just exposed a trafficking ring we've been hunting for 5 years." Emma wouldn't let go of Marcus. The social workers wanted to separate them, follow protocol, place them in different emergency homes. That's when something beautiful happened. "No," said a voice from the crowd of bikers. Lynx stepped forward. She was the only female member of the Iron Wolves, covered in tattoos, with a rap sheet longer than most of the men. She was also a nurse who worked night shifts at the children's hospital. "These kids stay together," Lynx announced. The social worker started to protest. "Ma'am, you can't just—" "I'm a licensed foster parent," Lynx interrupted, pulling out her credentials. "Clean for 10 years, house already approved by the state. These kids are coming with me." Nobody knew Lynx had been quietly preparing for this moment for 3 years, unable to have children of her own, but determined to help kids who needed it most. Her house had 4 bedrooms, a big backyard, and a therapy dog named Brutus, who looked like a wolf but was gentle as a lamb. "All 4?" the social worker asked, shocked. All four, Lynx confirmed, and any others you find from this network who need somewhere safe. Thunder put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. You did it, kid. You saved them all. Marcus looked, up at the giant biker, then at his sister in his arms, then at the twins being loaded into an ambulance with Doc riding along to make sure they were treated right. I almost didn't, Marcus whispered. I almost went to the bridge instead. But you didn't, Thunder said firmly. You were braver than any of us have ever been. You walked into a bar full of criminals and asked for help. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done. What happens next will reveal how one brave boy's desperate act exposed a criminal conspiracy that saved 47 children across multiple states, and remind us why sometimes the most unlikely heroes wear leather and ride Harleys. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. The investigation exploded across state lines. The FBI task force named it Operation Guardian Angel, and at the center of it all was Marcus's detailed testimony. The 9-year-old boy had been documenting everything for months, hiding notes in library books, sending coded messages to a teacher who had been too afraid to act. Agent Chen met with Marcus at Lynx's house, where all 4 children were beginning to heal. The house was nothing like what they'd known before. Warm colors, soft furniture, locks only on the outside of doors. Brutus the therapy dog had claimed Emma as his special human, following her everywhere, sleeping beside her bed to guard against nightmares. Marcus, these notes you hid, Agent Chen said, showing him photographs of his hidden messages. How long have you been documenting the abuse? Since the 2nd week, Marcus replied. I knew nobody would believe just my word. Foster kids lie, that's what everyone says. So I wrote everything down, dates, times, what they did. I hid papers in library books because Gary and Linda never read. I figured someday somebody would find them. The FBI found 37 of Marcus's hidden notes, each one more heartbreaking than the last. But they also found something else. Marcus had documented license plates of cars that came to the house late at night, descriptions of people who paid Gary cash for private time with foster children, phone numbers overheard and memorized. You've been running your own investigation, Agent Chen realized. Marcus, you're the bravest kid I've ever met. 3 weeks into the investigation, Thunder got a call at 2 a.m. Another foster home connected to the network was about to move kids out of state to avoid detection. 47 children were being loaded into vans for transport to Mexico. The Iron Wolves rode again, this time with federal marshals as backup. Thunder had called in favors from motorcycle clubs in 5 states. 300 bikers converged on a warehouse in Nevada where the children were being held. The rescue operation played out like a military strike. Bikers blocked every exit route while law enforcement moved in. The traffickers, expecting to face only police, found themselves surrounded by an army of leather-clad warriors who had made protecting children their new mission. All 47 children were saved, some who had been missing from their real families for years. Among them was a 13-year-old girl named Sarah who had been taken from her family 4 years earlier. She'd given up hope of ever being found until she saw the bikers crash through the warehouse doors. Are you angels? She asked Razor, who was cutting her restraints. Nah, kid, Razor replied, his voice gruff with emotion. We're just bikers who got reminded what's worth fighting for. The trial preparations began immediately. The scope of the case was staggering. 53 defendants across multiple states, hundreds of charges, and Marcus as the star witness. But testifying meant facing the monsters again. The trauma therapist warned it could set back his recovery. Marcus made the decision himself. Other kids are still out there. If I don't tell what happened, they stay lost. I have to do this. That's when the Iron Wolves did something that made national news. Every day of the trial, they formed a guardian corridor from the courthouse steps to the courtroom doors. 200 bikers from chapters across the country, standing silent and imposing, making sure Marcus and Emma felt safe, walking past the cameras and the supporters of the accused. The media couldn't understand it. These were criminals, outlaws, men with violent histories. Yet here they were, protecting children with a dedication that put legitimate authorities to shame. Judge Harrison, a veteran jurist who'd seen everything in 30 years on the bench, had never seen anything like it. When the defense attorney tried to object to the intimidating presence of the bikers, the judge shut him down. These citizens are peacefully assembling in support of child victims. They stay. Marcus testified for 3 days. Every time his voice shook, he would look at Thunder in the gallery and find his strength again. Emma drew pictures while her brother spoke, surrounded by tough bikers who had taken turns learning to braid her hair. The little girl had started calling them her leather angels. Snake, who had once served 15 years for aggravated assault, was now Emma's favorite tea party guest. He'd learned all the names of her stuffed animals and could pour imaginary tea with his pinky properly extended. Razor taught the twins, Joey and David, how to work on motorcycles. The boys, who had barely spoken when rescued, now chattered constantly about engines and chrome. Marcus's testimony was devastating. He spoke clearly, precisely, with a maturity beyond his years. He identified photographs, described incidents in detail, and never wavered even under harsh cross-examination. "The defense attorney is trying to break him," Thunder muttered during a recess. "That boy won't break," Wolf observed. "He's been through worse than anything that lawyer can dish out. He's got warrior spirit." During the trial, more victims came forward. Parents who had lost children years ago suddenly had hope. DNA tests were run, families were reunited, and Marcus's courage had started an avalanche of justice. One reunion particularly moved everyone. A mother named Patricia had been searching for her daughter for 3 years. When DNA confirmed that one of the rescued girls was hers, the reunion happened right in the courthouse hallway. 300 pounds of bikers openly wept as mother and daughter embraced. Gary broke on day 5, turning state's evidence to avoid the death penalty. His confession implicated 37 others, including judges, social workers, and police officers who had been paid to look the other way. Linda held out until day 7, when prosecutors played a recording Marcus had made on an old phone he'd hidden in the air vent. Her own words, describing in detail what she planned to do to Emma, sealed her fate. The courtroom had to be cleared when families of victims tried to attack her. The bikers formed a protective wall, but their eyes said they wouldn't have minded letting the families through. The verdict came back guilty on all charges. 143 counts of child endangerment, trafficking, and abuse. Gary and Linda would die in prison, but more importantly, their network was destroyed forever. After the trial, something unexpected happened. The Iron Wolves, the most feared motorcycle club in 3 states, officially partnered with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Their clubhouse became a safe haven where kids could come if they ever felt threatened. Thunder used his connections to start a legitimate security company, hiring ex-cons to protect children's shelters and group homes. "We know what predators look like," he explained to a reporter, "because some of us used to be monsters too. But redemption is real, and protecting kids is how we earn it." The transformation was remarkable. Men who had dealt drugs now volunteered at youth centers. Former enforcers became certified in child crisis intervention. The Iron Wolves annual poker run, which used to fund illegal activities, now raised money for abuse survivors. Marcus thrived in Lynx's care. The boy who had written a suicide note was now speaking at schools about recognizing abuse and finding help. He carried Thunder's business card everywhere, telling kids, "If you're scared, find the scariest-looking people who care. They'll protect you because they understand what real evil looks like." Emma started first grade with a pink backpack and a smile that lit up rooms. Her nightmares were fading, replaced by dreams of becoming a doctor who helps hurt children. She still had tea parties with Snake every Sunday, and he never missed one. The sight of the tattooed giant sitting at a tiny table, wearing a plastic tiara and discussing the weather with stuffed bears, became legendary at the clubhouse. The twins, Joey and David, were adopted by Doc and his wife. Doc had been unable to have children after cancer treatment, but now his house was filled with laughter and the sound of little boys learning to be kids again. They were inseparable, making up for years of isolation with constant adventure. 6 months after the trial, Marcus stood before a crowd of 2,000 bikers at the annual Iron Wolves charity ride. He was there to thank them, but found himself speechless at the sight of so many patches and leather vests. Thunder lifted him onto his shoulders so everyone could see. This boy saved 47 lives because he was brave enough to ask for help. He reminded us that strength isn't about how hard you can hit, it's about who you're willing to stand up for. The roar from 2,000 bikers could be heard for miles. They raised $3 million that day for children's advocacy centers. Years passed. Marcus graduated high school as valedictorian, with 20 Iron Wolves in attendance. His speech referenced the night he almost gave up, but chose to walk into that bar instead. "People ask me how I knew to go there," Marcus said from the podium. "The truth is, I didn't. I just knew that sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Sometimes the people society fears most are the ones who understand protection best. Sometimes a leather vest and tattoos are just armor worn by guardian angels." He went on to law school, specializing in child advocacy. Emma followed him, choosing pediatric medicine. The twins became social workers. All four dedicated their lives to protecting children, inspired by the leather-clad angels who had saved them. Lynx officially adopted all four children, giving them the family they'd never had. Her house became a gathering place for rescued children and reformed bikers alike. Sunday dinners often included 20 people, mixing children doing homework with bikers discussing their next charity ride. Thunder, now in his 60s, still rides every Sunday. The wall of his legitimate office is covered with photos of kids the Iron Wolves have helped, 500 and counting. Each one a reminder that even the darkest souls can choose light. The club's reputation had transformed completely. Where once people crossed the street to avoid them, now parents brought their children to meet the guardian bikers. The police, who used to raid their clubhouse, now called them when a child was in danger and the system was moving too slowly. Marcus, now a successful attorney, still carries that original suicide note in his wallet, not as a reminder of his darkest moment, but as proof that choosing life, choosing to ask for help, can change everything. He married his law school sweetheart, a woman who understood his mission because she'd been rescued from trafficking as a teenager. Their wedding was attended by 300 bikers who revved their engines in celebration as the couple kissed. Emma became one of the youngest doctors to specialize in pediatric trauma. She kept a photo of Snake at her tea party on her desk, reminding her that healing could come from the most unexpected places. The twins opened a motorcycle shop together, employing at-risk youth and teaching them trades. Doc was their silent partner, proud of the men they'd become. Their shop became neutral ground where rival clubs could meet peacefully, united in their commitment to protecting children. The Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club still meets at the same bar. But now there's a sign on the door that wasn't there before. Safe haven, all children welcome. The interior had changed too. Where once there were only beer signs and bike posters, now there were children's drawings. Emma's early artwork depicting bikers as literal angels with wings and motorcycles had place of honor above the bar. Thunder keeps a special book, leather-bound and locked. Inside are letters from every child they've helped. Some are written in crayon, others typed on computers in college dorms. All say the same thing in different ways. Thank you for showing me that angels wear leather, because sometimes a 9-year-old boy's desperate plea can transform an entire community. Sometimes the most unlikely heroes are the ones who understand darkness because they've lived in it. And sometimes saving one life leads to saving dozens more. Marcus often tells people, "I handed them my suicide note, and they handed me back a future. They didn't just save my life that night, they saved my soul." The last government count found 0 children missing from the state's foster care system for 5 consecutive years. The Iron Wolves take no official credit, but everyone knows why predators no longer target vulnerable kids in their territory. Evil still exists, but now it knows that somewhere out there, leather-clad guardians are watching, waiting, and ready to ride at a moment's notice for any child who needs them. The ripple effects continue. Other motorcycle clubs across the nation have followed the Iron Wolves' example. The Guardian Angel Alliance now includes over 50 clubs dedicated to child protection. They share intelligence, coordinate rescues, and ensure that no child in their territory falls through the cracks. Marcus keeps in touch with every child saved during Operation Guardian Angel. He sends birthday cards, attends graduations, and offers free legal help to any who need it. His law firm, Guardian Legal Services, has never lost a case involving child protection. Thunder died peacefully at 78, surrounded by the family he'd chosen and the children he'd saved. His funeral procession included 2,000 motorcycles and even more grateful hearts. Marcus gave the eulogy, that same 9-year-old boy, now grown into a man who'd saved hundreds more. He taught us that redemption isn't just possible, Marcus said, his voice carrying across the crowd. It's an obligation, that our worst moments don't define us, our response to them does. That sometimes God sends angels in forms we don't expect, wearing leather instead of halos. The Iron Wolves continue Thunder's legacy. Every Thursday night they hold angel hours where any child can walk in and ask for help. No judgment, no questions about why they're alone at night. Just immediate protection and assistance. Because Marcus taught them all a powerful truth. Sometimes the smallest voice can start the loudest roar for justice. And sometimes all it takes to save multiple lives is one brave child who refuses to let darkness win. The note that started it all is now framed in the courthouse, a reminder that justice can come from anywhere. Below it, a plaque reads, "In honor of Marcus, who reminded us that courage has no age limit, and that sometimes the most unlikely people become the greatest heroes." If you believe every child deserves protection, please subscribe to hear more incredible true stories. And click on one of the 2 amazing stories on your screen right now. You won't believe what happens next.